Okay, imagine this. You're on a massive treasure hunt. You've spent millions of dollars on old maps, fancy gear, and a team of experts, all because you're hoping to find a legendary lost treasure. But how do you account for all that money before you've actually found any gold? Well, that's the exact problem that mining, oil, and gas companies deal with every single day. And we're about to dig into their rule book for it, IFRS 6.
So yeah, that question right there, that's the entire reason IFRS 6 even exists. It's all about guiding companies on how to report the enormous costs of searching for things like oil, gas, and minerals, long before they have any clue if they'll ever see a dime in profit. It's a huge financial gamble, and this standard is what tries to bring a little bit of order to all that chaos.
All right, first up, accounting for a treasure hunt. See, before this standard was created, things were kind of the Wild West. There was no single consistent way to do this. Different companies in different countries all have their own rules for this super high-risk, high-cost search. And as you can imagine, that made it almost impossible for an investor to fairly compare one company's treasure hunt to another's.
Now, you'd think the goal of IFRS 6 would be to create a whole new set of super strict rules. But actually, no. It was designed to make, and I'm quoting here, limited improvements. The idea was to let companies keep doing a lot of what they were already doing, but to force them to be way more transparent, especially about when a project fails and what they're spending. Okay, let's talk about the rules of the game. Because just like any treasure hunt, there are rules. And probably the most important one is knowing exactly when the accounting clock starts ticking. So what really counts as exploration, and when does IFRS 6 actually kick in? Well, it all boils down to this very specific window of time. The clock starts after a company gets the legal rights to search a piece of land. And the clock stops the very moment they can prove that, hey, we found something and it's actually commercially viable. It's that fuzzy, uncertain period in between. So this really lays it out for us. Any money you spend before you even have the rights to dig, that doesn't count. And once you've proven you've hit the jackpot and you start building the mine, that's covered by different rules. IFRS 6 is purely for that super risky search phase right in the middle. Okay, now this is a bombshell in the accounting world. Seriously, normally accounting rules are incredibly rigid. But IFRS 6 comes right out and says companies get a ton of flexibility here. It lets them basically create their own accounting policies for these costs, which is almost unheard of. It's a huge admission that this industry is just different, and a one-size-fits-all rule just won't work.
All right, so if these companies are spending all this cash during the search, how do they actually put it on the books? Well, this is where we get to the cool part, building what I like to call the treasure map asset.
Instead of all this spending just being an expense that immediately hits your profits, IFRS 6 lets companies bundle it all together and call it an asset on their balance sheet. And it makes sense when you think about it. The money you spend on geologists and drilling isn't just gone, it's been transformed into valuable information. It's become your treasure map.
So, what kind of stuff gets tossed into this asset bucket? Well, it's pretty much the whole shebang. You've got the money it takes to just get the rights to explore, all the scientific studies, the actual physical drilling and sampling, and even the cost of the studies to figure out if what you found is worth anything. And this asset can come in two flavors: intangible or tangible. Think of it like this. The legal right to drill. That's a concept, a piece of paper. You can't touch it, so it's intangible. But the massive drilling rig itself, the trucks, you can definitely kick the tires on those. They're tangible. A company just has to be consistent in how it classifies them.
And this all leads us to the moment of truth in every treasure hunt. What happens when the search is finally over? You've either struck gold or you've come up completely empty-handed. And believe me, the accounting has to reflect both of those outcomes.
Yeah, let's be real for a second. The hard truth is that most exploration projects do not end with a big discovery. This is a business built on high risks and, frankly, a lot of failures. So the accounting rules absolutely need a way to deal with that failure, and that mechanism is called impairment.
This is really the key question, isn't it? A company can't just keep a worthless treasure map on its books forever, pretending a discovery is just around the next corner. So IFRS 6 gives us very specific triggers that force a company to stop and ask, has our map lost its value? The standard basically gives us a checklist of red flags. For example, if your license to explore is about to expire, or if management decides to stop funding the project, or, the most obvious one, you just haven't found anything of value. If any of those things happen, the company must test the asset for impairment. And if it turns out it's worthless, they have to write it off as a loss. Simple as that.
But okay, enough doom and gloom. What about the good news? What happens when the hunt is a success? Well, that asset gets a promotion. It graduates. The second you can prove the project is viable, it stops being an exploration asset. It transforms into the foundation of a future mine or oil well. It's the real deal now.
So, let's bring it all home. Let's talk about what investors need to know. When you're looking at a company's financial statements, how can you use all this to read their financial treasure map and figure out what's really going on?
The key here is disclosures. The company is required to tell you some really important stuff. They have to explain their specific accounting policies, which tells you if they're being aggressive or conservative. They have to report the total value of all these exploration assets, so you can see how much money they have riding on unproven projects. And they have to show you the cash flows, how much actual cash they're burning through on the hunt.
And all of that leaves us with the final multi-million-dollar question. Thanks to IFRS 6, you've got the tools to do some digging of your own. But it's up to you, the investor, to look at all the clues and decide. When you see that exploration asset on the balance sheet, are you looking at a future gold mine or just a very expensive map to nowhere?